If somebody burst through your window, put a loaded gun to your head, and for some inexplicable reason demanded you name a perfect scene in cinema, I'm sure if you're anything like me, you would instantly blurt out, "Oh, that scene in Shrek 2 where the fairy godmother sings Bonnie Tyler's Holding Out for a Hero and a giant gingerbread man called Mungo drowns in a moat." Well, get ready for the equivalent of a conversation with a drunk friend who you just can't get away from, and who keeps going on about ogres being eerily similar to onions. Because I'm Oscar from Screen on Point, and this is an unnecessarily detailed technical analysis of Shrek 2 and the perfect scene. Shrek 2, the sequel to DreamWorks' smash hit, pop culture reference heavy animated film that satirised classic Disney fairy tales, was released in 2004 and became the highest grossing animated film of all time until Toy Story 3 surpassed it in 2010. But what is it about this one particular scene that makes it stand out from the rest of the franchise and arguably the rest of cinematic history? As famous deep thinker and spiritual guru Steven Seagal was quoted as saying, "In a film, it doesn't work if the bad guys kill his mother's uncle's friend's neighbour's pet dog. You've got to make the stakes high." From the climactic scene in 1917 where Schofield has to stop the soldiers going over the top to save all of their lives, to any number of world-ending threats in any number of generic Marvel films, a film is only as gripping as the stakes, or what the audience believes will happen if the protagonist doesn't get what he or she wants. In the I Need a Hero scene in Shrek 2, the stakes are uncomfortably high for a family film. The consequences of Shrek not getting to Fiona in time are likely that he'll lose her forever. In an earlier scene, Fiona's dad reluctantly drugs her tea with a potion that will make her fall in love with the next person to kiss her. One of the film's antagonists, Prince Charming, pretends to be Shrek transformed into a human in order to kiss her and make her fall in love with him in an attempt to get the crown. With the scheme so dastardly that even Littlefinger from Game of Thrones would say, "Hang on a second, mate, I think you might have gone a bit too far with this one." Like the use of Amy Mann's Wise Up in Magnolia, the choice of music in this scene both reminds the audience of the stakes and heightens the emotional impact of the events that play out on screen. The song Holding Out for a Hero opens up with the lyrics, "Where have all the good men gone? And where are all the gods?" As we hear this, we see Princess Fiona standing on the stairs, looking down at Charming extending his hand out towards her for a dance. The fact that the crowd are cheering for her to dance with him, and that the song is sung by the fairy godmother, who's the film's main antagonist, to romantically set the scene for Charming to charm Fiona, highlights the hopeless nature of her situation, as everyone around her seems to be against her, pressuring her to give in to Prince Charming. When the fairy godmother sings I Need a Hero, she's trying to portray her son as the hero that Fiona needs. However, as the audience, we know that the real white knight upon a fiery steed is the film's protagonist Shrek, who is quite literally upon a fiery steed. Although the song's lyrics and Shrek's heroic actions in this scene portray him as the classic prince of a Disney fairy tale, the message of the film is arguably about being comfortable with who you really are. As satisfying as it is for the audience to see Shrek save the day as a dashing prince with a cute button nose, ultimately, Fiona loves him for who he is inside, rather than who he is pretending to be, which is further illustrated by the decision to turn back into their true ogre selves. So on closer inspection, the party crashing scene becomes about more than just Shrek saving the damsel in distress. He's also proving to himself that he is worthy of her love, and that he is a hero or a white knight on the inside. It would be next to impossible to talk about this scene without first talking about the tragic and heroic demise of the giant gingerbread man you'd probably know as Mungo. In fact, to be honest with you, the Frankenstein-like creation of the Muffin Man, who you might have heard lives on Drury Lane, is the very reason I made this video in the first place. From Lenny and John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, to Hodor holding that door in Game of Thrones, there's nothing quite like a dim but gentle giant going out like an absolute hero to tug on an audience's heartstrings, and more specifically, tug on my heartstrings. Mungo takes a catapult shot to the chest which knocks off one of his gumdrop buttons. As we know from the gingerbread man's run-in with Lord Farquaad in the first film, the gumdrop buttons are sacred to the gingerbread people. As the audience, this is the moment that we realise that Mungo isn't indestructible, which adds an element of real danger to the scene. As Mungo lets out a Godzilla-style roar and kicks the gumdrop button back at the castle, we get a tragic glimpse at the lengths Mungo's willing to go for the cause. Even if, like Lenny from Of Mice and Men, he doesn't really understand it, he's driven by blind loyalty. Mungo survives a cauldron of warm milk to the face, which does beg the question, how were these guards so prepared for a giant gingerbread man attack? Has this happened before to the land of far, far away? Unfortunately, that is a question for another time. When the guards use more heat, less foam, it brutally rips Mungo's arms off. Crucially, it's Mungo opening the drawbridge that enables Shrek to break into the castle, and is his last heroic act before he falls back into the moat. The super slow-mo shots of the gingerbread man running down Shrek's arm to jump after his big old friend, accompanied by the epic-sounding rising choral score, and the knowledge that the gingerbread man is willing to die with Mongo both increases the emotional impact of this moment, and even 16 years later, still brings a tear to this guy's eye. Along with the undeniable heartbreak of Mongo's noble sacrifice, the scene is crammed with more moments of satisfying character development than The Wire and The Sopranos combined. When we're first introduced to the character of Puss in Boots, he's been hired by Fiona's father as a hitman to take out Shrek. When the assassination attempt fails, Shrek spares his life, and Puss proposes that he owes a life debt to him, not dissimilar to the debt Morgan Freeman's character believes he owes to Robin Hood in Prince of Thieves. In the party crashing scene, Puss in Boots' redemptive character arc comes to its conclusion, as we finally get to see him repay his debt in a moment so undeniably badass. For a few beautiful seconds, you'll completely forget you're watching a cartoon cat in an animated kids film about ogres. We know from the first film, where Fiona hides the fact that she turns into an ogre at night, that she holds onto the idea of being a beautiful princess and being accepted by her family and broader society. This adds weight to the shot where she puts the rose back into her mouth whilst she's dancing with Prince Charming. Although he says he is Shrek and he looks like the ideal partner, she puts the rose in her mouth to postpone kissing him, because deep down, she knows something isn't right with this new version of Shrek. Ultimately, she's in love with who Shrek is on the inside, not his looks, and she doesn't recognise that in Prince Charming. Also, for some reason, he suddenly sounds a lot like Rupert Everett. The directorial decisions and stylistic choices in this scene arguably increase how exhilarating the whole thing is, and quite frankly, puts any Castle Siege episode from Game of Thrones, and I dare say every other action scene I've ever watched, to shame. Unlike that infamous scene in the Taken franchise, where Liam Neeson jumps over a fence and it takes them 15 shots when it should only have taken 2, every shot on this scene is carefully chosen to serve the narrative. Just to pick one shot to illustrate this point, when the fairy godmother sings, there is an aerial shot of her on the piano which spins as it tracks into a close-up. The disorientating movement of the camera as it draws us in towards the fairy godmother acts in a similar way to the tracking shot of Ray Liotta taking his date through the restaurant in Goodfellas, as it represents a kind of seduction, enticing Princess Fiona with the possibility of giving into the pressure to accept this new, more socially acceptable Shrek. When the camera is tracked into that close-up, the fairy godmother, here playing a sultry lounge singer, breaks character for a moment by laughing and looking directly into the camera. This reveals the untrustworthy nature of her character and hints at the artifice of this whole performance, as it amounts to nothing more than an act to trick Fiona into kissing Prince Charming. By breaking the fourth wall in this way, the fairy godmother seems to be reveling in the fact that her evil plan will come to fruition, making the audience want to see Shrek save the day even more than they already did before, which increases the urgency of the scene. When Shrek swings through the gap in the drawbridge, there is a clever cut with the very next shot as Prince Charming's feet landing on the dance floor. By drawing visual comparisons between Shrek and Prince Charming with one carefully chosen edit, the filmmakers blur the line between the two characters, which works perfectly with the villain's plot to essentially replace Shrek. By reminding the audience that Shrek is at risk of losing everything, including his very identity, the filmmakers again batter us over the head with the rising stakes of the film, and just how evil the two antagonists really are, which makes it even more satisfying when Shrek saves the day with the help of all of his friends, including of course Mongo, who I'm not sure I've mentioned enough in this video. In conclusion, during this stressful time, where the world appears to be crumbling apart in front of our very eyes, I think I speak for everyone when I say, we're holding out for a hero. You could say, until the end of the night. He's gotta be strong, he's gotta be fast, and he's gotta be fresh from the fight. We need a hero. And maybe that's why this scene in Shrek 2 is so perfect. It's about believing in yourself, about becoming the hero you've always wanted to be, and realising that at the end of the day, it's what's inside that counts. Thank you to any of you streetwise Hercules that have made it to the end of this video. If you've got any thoughts, do let us know in the comments below. And you can follow us at Screen On Point or at Oscar Wallington on Twitter. Right, I guess I'm off to go watch that scene again and cry into a packet of gingerbread men. See you around, cheese bags.